In the year 2000, 7 prisoners in Texas made a bold decision to carry out an elaborate escape from a high-security correctional facility. These 7 individuals were far from being just ordinary inmates. They were, in the most literal sense of the word, hardened criminals. The specific method they planned to employ for their breakout was truly exceptional and unlike anything I've ever encountered before. And that's quite a statement, given the numerous escape narratives I've already presented on this very channel.
I honestly don't believe I've ever witnessed an escape operation of this audacity.
Everyone, and welcome. This is Badr. The events of our story took place in the year 2000. The location is in the American state of Texas, specifically at a maximum security prison known as the Connolly Unit, or Connolly Prison. Maximum security prisons are considered the highest type of correctional facilities in terms of their security measures. And naturally, the inmates held within its walls were perpetrators of the most violent offenses: murderers, rapists, kidnappers, and notorious gang members. One of the criminals who was incarcerated in this prison was a man named George Reeves, and he will be the main character in our story. This criminal had already come to terms with and accepted the reality that he belonged in prison as punishment for the many crimes he committed. Imagine he was sentenced to 18 life sentences. You might think he's a murderer or a serial killer when you hear the sentences against him, but in reality, he's imprisoned for a series of robberies. But the robbery operations he carried out were not simple at all. First of all, he executed a very large number of robberies, not just a single theft or merely a couple of them. And secondly, most of his operations were armed and violent, even involving kidnappings, taking hostages, and causing injuries. Many of these even resulted in severe harm to the people whose sheer bad luck unfortunately placed them right in the middle of it all. Reeves, given that he was sentenced to 18 life sentences, he must serve 270 years in prison before he's eligible for parole. This means he'll never get out. He's going to die in this place. But the problem is, even if he were ready, he had no choice but to accept his reality and spend the rest of his life in prison. This place was incredibly violent, packed with the most dangerous criminals imaginable, and every so often conflicts and serious problems would erupt, frequently leading to the death or murder of an inmate within these prison walls. Reeves felt it was only a matter of time until he'd face a problem or situation that could end his life in this place. He was convinced he wouldn't die a natural death if he remained in this prison. He'd be killed or something else would happen to him. So at this point, the man began to consider the idea of escape, and after he had firmly made his decision, he finally resolved to escape. He opened his eyes and began to observe the prison's corners and every detail, all the past years he spent in prison. He hadn't seen the place in the way he sees it now. He began to observe and notice things he hadn't before. He was looking for vulnerabilities and weak points. He meticulously explores every conceivable detail. He desperately seeks an exit, a way that could possibly get him out of this dreadful place. Of course, this prison, known as a maximum security institution, was equipped with the highest level of security measures, alongside extremely stringent procedures and strict laws for every single action and movement taking place within its confines. First, there are 2 iron fences, reinforced with barbed wire, positioned one behind the other, completely encircling the entire prison facility. The height of these formidable fences from the ground extends up to 4 full meters. Furthermore, numerous watchtowers are strategically positioned and distributed to ensure comprehensive coverage of the entire prison grounds. Upon these towers, armed guards are constantly monitoring every single exit point and every last corner within the prison complex. Furthermore, they possess the authority to open fire on any prisoner who attempts to make an escape. In addition to this, continuous patrols circle the prison with armed guards on board monitoring the prison's perimeter and its inmates, especially during recreation periods when inmates are allowed into the outdoor yards. Reeves knew it would be impossible to execute an escape by himself. He needed his companions and colleagues to share in it with him. And here we meet the second criminal in the team, whose name was Joseph Garcia.
Reeves and Garcia met in the summer of that year, the year 2000, and they started.
After they got to know each other, they immediately found harmony. They shared the same ideas and perspectives. Garcia, by the way, had been imprisoned for a murder, and he was also serving a life sentence. Their first encounter between Reeves and Garcia took place at the dining table. Immediately, the very first thing Garcia said to Reeves was that he had seen him before in the maintenance workshop. This maintenance workshop was one of the prison's facilities, and it was among the areas where inmates were employed. And keep this in your thoughts, because it will have a pivotal role in the escape operation. Reeves opened up to his new friend Garcia about the escape idea and requested him to join. Garcia wasn't considering escape at that moment, but Reeves persuaded him. The 2 prisoners then began to discuss and brainstorm ways they could possibly execute their escape. The first things that came to their minds were the usual ideas: escaping through a tunnel, or perhaps by jumping over tall iron fences and other similar things. But they quickly understood that these particular ideas were not at all practical for them, and that they would most likely be apprehended immediately, so they absolutely had to start thinking in a much more creative and intelligent manner. This particular prison contained around 3,000 inmates, but in stark contrast, there were merely 500 guards. Furthermore, not all of these guards were on duty simultaneously. Instead, they operated on a system of rotating shifts and duties. The guards, in terms of their numbers, were far fewer than the prisoners. Reeves confidently believed that the guards had specific instructions not to offer any resistance if the inmates attempted to attack or capture them, because their chances of survival would be quite slim due to their significantly smaller numbers. Therefore, the best course of action for them was to comply with the rebellious prisoners and simply submit to their demands. So, Reeves believed this was the most secure path for them, considering their roles as prison guards and staff. He then reasoned if the prison guards were under strict orders not to offer any resistance, why not simply employ force to bring them under control? It was then that Reeves revealed to his trusted companion Garcia his truly outlandish and audacious idea. He asked him, "What do you think if we were to take control of the maintenance workshop by force and then subdue all the guards who are stationed there?" His friend Garcia was quite taken with the suggestion, and he responded, "By God, that is an excellent idea. The maintenance workshop is considered one of the most crucial facilities within the prison, and a significant number of inmates are employed there, including both Reeves and Garcia themselves. The tasks performed in this workshop are quite diverse, catering to various prison facilities, encompassing maintenance, repairs, installations, manufacturing, and other related services. Naturally, it's not solely the inmates who are employed in this workshop. There are also dedicated prison staff and maintenance personnel, with the prisoners working primarily as their assistants." This was a form of rehabilitation, you see. Reeves' whole idea of taking control of the workshop had one very significant advantage. It would provide them with direct access to all sorts of tools, keys, and even vehicles. All of these necessary items were already present within the workshop. However, taking control of the workshop, of course, would not be an easy undertaking. A plan of this magnitude would certainly require enlisting a greater number of inmates for the escape. So, Reeves immediately began searching for more additional prisoners to bring into the team. Choosing the appropriate individuals was undoubtedly one of the most critical elements of the entire operation. Given that they would be employing force to gain control of the workshop, they required inmates possessing both physical strength and sound judgment to prevent the situation from escalating beyond their management. Consequently, Reeves dedicated considerable time to identifying the most suitable individuals, engaging in extensive conversations with numerous prospective prisoners whom he considered for inclusion in his team. He meticulously sought to select only the very best, much as one would conduct professional job interviews. Ultimately, Reeves selected 5 additional prisoners to join the operation, bringing their total number to 7. The 7 were George Reeves, the operations leader, his friend Joseph Garcia, Randy Halperin, Larry Harper, Michael Rodriguez, Patrick Murphy, and Donald Newbury. But all of them were sentenced to life imprisonment for heinous crimes such as murder, rape, kidnapping, and violent robberies. Reeves then gathered his 7 colleagues and began to explain his detailed plan to them at the dining table. He placed a box on the table to represent the maintenance workshop and another box next to it to represent the nearby guard room. He also placed a pin,